Yo, what is going on, you guys? Hey, I have been doing some cycling today. Literally out here in the good old country, and I was thinking about something, and I really just wanted to just talk to you guys for a quick second. And I think it's important, just as we are thinking about this new year and thinking about what you are getting into, really why building your business takes endurance, not speed. Why building your business takes endurance and not speed. So while I was riding, I was thinking about, consistency and motivation, and how consistency over motivation can easily outpace anything else. It can easily outpace any business. It can easily outpace any competition, because the reality is, just like when you're cycling, you're wanting to run into it head first, and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to just tackle this ride. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get my heart rate up, and I'm going to sprint as fast as I can. And then I'm going to hit this hill. I'm going to hit it harder. But the reality is, you got to change gears. You're going to have to change some gears. You're going to have to be consistent in your pace. You're going to have to be consistent with your breathing. You're going to have to be consistent with just making sure that you're not burning yourself out quickly. And oftentimes, the first time we get on the bike, we're motivated. We're like, yes, I did it. Then the second time we do it, we're motivated again. Third time we do it, we feel a little pain in the morning, so we're like, am I going to do it? Yes, I push through. But by the fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth time, you're like, yo, you know what? I think I could take a break today. And what happens is, you lose the consistency, and while you were originally motivated to do it, your consistency fades away. And that's the same way with business. That's the same way with photography, videography, and making sure that as we are laying this foundation, definitely in this corporate space, that you got to be consistent. Corporate clients are not looking for someone who is just here for the hype. Corporate clients are not looking for someone who is just here to post something online. They're looking for someone who is going to be consistent in delivering at the timeline that they say they're going to deliver. They're looking for someone who is going to respond to emails when they say they're going to respond. They're looking for someone who's going to provide all of the necessary requirements that will help them get to their end success goal. Another thing that I was thinking about was how, when you're riding and when you're cycling on a bike, you got to pace yourself. You got to pace yourself, because what's going to happen is, the same way that we're looking at that motivation and that consistency, when you don't pace yourself, you burn out. So that means setting realistic expectations, setting real goals. I was cycling probably about the first mile, and I had to pull back because I realized I was going too fast. I realized that I'm not going to hit my 10 to 12 miles today if I keep going at this pace. And sometimes that means having to say no. Sometimes that means having to get to a place of being able to scale accordingly, meaning you may not buy every subscription just because you saw it online. You may not buy every camera. You may not buy every lens just because it looks cool and you saw someone else do it. Sometimes it means, hey, I need to pace myself. I need to save up a little bit. I need to make sure that I can take on this work. Maybe I shoot it free at the first time. Maybe I'm looking at it and I say, let me study this. Maybe I go take a class so that I can get better at it. But the truth of the matter is that when you pace yourself, you avoid burnout. So you really want to make sure that, one, you're being consistent, because that's going to always out-trump motivation. You're going to want to make sure that you're pacing yourself, because that's going to avoid burnout. But then the last thing is, progress isn't always loud. I'm going to say that again. Progress isn't always loud. I know that seems like, yeah, we've heard that before, but sometimes we don't have to show everybody everything. Sometimes we don't have to be so loud, because we've heard the statement, the person loudest in the room usually may be the weakest person in the room too. And so you want to make sure that when you're progressing, you're also looking to say, hey, what did I learn? You want to make sure that when you're progressing, that you're looking at, hey, did I just do the work? Same when it comes to cycling, you don't see the progress quickly. It's funny enough that when I first bought the first cycling bike, it got stolen, and I was excited, but then I was hurt. And then I waited a couple years, and my wife then surprised me with a Peloton, and I was like, man, look, I'm a couple pounds overweight. I need to go ahead and get on this bike, and I know I can burn this fat quickly. Well, the reality is this thing called metabolism, and just like that metabolism, it slows down. And just like I did, I slowed down. But while I was trying to outpace myself, while I was trying to get on this bike 2 times a day, and I thought, man, I'm gonna see all of this progression, and I'm going to see that I've lost all this weight very quickly, and people are gonna be like, wow, Des, you lost all this weight. Well, the reality was this. When I started doing research, they start saying that it takes more miles than you would even think to really start seeing a big change. Now, things that I did start to see was that my breathing was a little bit more controlled. Things that I did start to see was my endurance was a little bit better. What I started to see was my numbers would go up smaller at smallest rates. But what I did not see was what I wanted to see, which was a slimmer waist and some of that fat from my belly gone. And you got to understand, just because you're not making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 every single month doesn't mean that you're not making progress. As a photographer, as a videographer, as anyone definitely chasing the bag in the corporate space, that one client that books you once a month, every single month, guess what? That's progress. That one client that gives you an opportunity to shoot something and it may be less than your rate, that's progress. Because just because you have had to maybe make adjustments doesn't mean that you're counting yourself out. All that means is that you have an opportunity to get into the door. And so when we're looking at laying this foundation, definitely for getting into the corporate space and making sure that we are being consistent in how we're leveling up every single day, we got to remember these 3 things. Consistency over motivation. We want to pace ourselves so that we don't burn out. And then at the end of the day, progress is not always loud. You got to actually celebrate those small wins, because when you celebrate those wins, you're going to see a longer return on your investment. Last tip that I have for you is, I was talking to my boys about SEOs versus doing Google ads. And the reality is this: a Google ad is instant gratification. SEO is going to be a wealth builder in a long-term sustainable business. We talk about this a lot. We're looking for sustaining our business and leveling up in 2026 as well as beyond. You don't want just the gratification for this year. You want to go further than this year. That's how somebody like myself has been in business for over 15 years. I had to pace myself. So hey, I'm gonna keep doing these miles. I want you to keep doing these miles with me. Let's continue to keep growing. Let's keep leveling up. Till next time, peace.